The Objective News Network. Hello, everybody. This is John Hnatio reporting for the Objective News Network. I want to welcome you all here today to our broadcast for July 21st, 2023. Last week, I promised you that we would revisit our breaking news story on the mortgage fraud scam that is being played out in New Jersey as we present today's story. For years now, the JP Morgan Chase Bank has been trying to take away the home of an 81-year-old disabled senior citizen and veteran who is living on Social Security in Wall, New Jersey. This man is Nick Purpura. I've now completed reviewing hundreds of pages of documents, hearing and courtroom transcripts, and the physical evidence in the case to try and get a handle on the right and the wrong of what JP Morgan Chase is doing, trying to foreclose on the Purpura home. Now, I am not a lawyer, and I do not claim to be one. Rather, I am an investigator. I spent many years in government conducting highly complex investigations involving things like the proliferation of nuclear and biological weapons and other highly sensitive intelligence-related matters. After I retired, I decided to leverage my government experience, along with my educational background in criminal justice, to provide litigation support for lawyers handling complex legal cases. Over the past decade, I have learned a great deal about civil and criminal law. I have learned that the single common denominator in both civil and criminal cases is the violation of laws. After reviewing the mountains of evidence in the case of Nick Purpura, I am left astonished. In fact, absolutely astonished. I personally have never seen the amount of avarice and greed in any investigation I've ever conducted in the past. If there's one thing deeply rooted in our U.S. Constitution and the laws of our land, it is the notion of property and ownership. In case after legal case after legal case involving property, the first and foremost fundamental thing you must do is provide proof that you actually own what you say you do. This principle of ownership and the law is fundamental. But what judges and JP Morgan Chase lawyers in New Jersey are now saying all of a sudden, for the very first time, is that fundamental proof of ownership does not matter anymore, at least in the case of Nicholas Purpura and possibly thousands of other homeowners facing foreclosure. To understand what JP Morgan Chase Bank is doing to Nick Purpura, you need to know just a little bit about the history of his case. Nick's story begins on September 26, 2008, when Washington Mutual Bank collapsed in the largest bank failure in the history of the United States. After the collapse, WAMU Incorporated, the parent company of Washington Mutual Bank, created in Delaware a liquidating trust fund that held the failed bank's mortgage notes and supporting proof of ownership records. JP Morgan Chase then purchased only safe assets, such as credit card debt and car loans. They stayed completely away from the liability of purchasing risky mortgage notes. But to handle the terribly risky investments of mortgage notes, but unbelievably lucrative mortgage notes originally held by WAMU, JP Morgan Chase engaged in a fraudulent scheme to make billions of dollars using deception and fraud on innocent homeowners across the country. When it came to making money on Washington Mutual's mortgage loans that were still supposed to be in trust, J.P. Morgan quietly moved in to become the servicer of the original WAMU mortgage loans. Exactly how this maneuver wasn't caught by federal regulatory agencies like the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation or the Office of Thrift Supervision is not yet clear. But we will be looking into this aspect of the story as we continue our investigation. Now, most people, when they get a call from a bank saying that they are the new servicer of your mortgage loan, assume that the bank has gone through all of the necessary legal steps to prove that they, in fact, really own your home mortgage note. But instead, J.P. Morgan Chase Bank committed fraud on a grand scale by deceiving homeowners that they, J.P. Morgan Chase Bank, did, in fact, own their mortgage note that necessarily requires, under the laws of the United States, physical written proof of ownership. Now, J.P. Morgan Chase did not have WAMU mortgage proof of ownership because by that time the physical documents had been converted by the so-called Mortgage Electronic Repository System, or MERS, which is made up of guess who? J.P. Morgan Chase and other banks. And this was done to avoid normal recording fees. Even though the law absolutely requires that you have physical, properly recorded, and witnessed mortgage loan documentation in order to foreclose on any home. This makes what J.P. Morgan Chase did in the case of Nick Purpura fraudulent, because there are no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Under the law, you must have proof of ownership in the form of properly recorded physical documents to legally own any mortgage note. J.P. Morgan Chase knew this, but went ahead anyway to demand that homeowners refinance their mortgages at higher rates than they could afford, and then continue to make mortgage payments in order to bilk homeowners out of literally billions and billions of dollars in bogus mortgage payments. That's right, bogus mortgage payments. If they could not pay their mortgage, like vultures, J.P. Morgan Chase Bank swooped in to foreclose on their homes. In the case of Nick Purpura, he paid nearly $200,000 before he found out that he had been intentionally hoodwinked, deceived by J.P. Morgan Chase Bank. Right now, corrupt judges, the banks, and their lawyers all over the country are intentionally hiding the fact that the trust originally created in Delaware to hold WAMU mortgages is now empty because J.P. Morgan Chase stepped in to illicitly service mortgage loans as part of a huge scam to simply make billions and billions of dollars in illicit profits. In Nick Purpura's case, he has the hard evidence that J.P. Morgan Chase and their agents, lawyers, have forged evidence to try and prove to the courts in New Jersey that it has the ownership documents required to prove under the law the required ownership of his house and mortgage note. And yet the courts of New Jersey continue to block the evidence of forgery, fraud, and deceit to prevent the disclosure of the much larger mortgage fraud scheme that involves the government itself, including judges, large banks like J.P. Morgan Chase, and their legions of lawyers. It is what it is for July 21st, 2023. This is John Hnatio reporting for the Objective News Network. In an upcoming story, we will explore some of the specific actions of judges, lawyers, and New Jersey employees as they continue to operate the largest RICO mortgage fraud enterprise in the entire history of the United States of America. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and we will see you the next time.